Yep, I'm live. That's what YouTube says on the screen. So, yeah, yapping. The stream is called this time. Because that's objectively what I do during these streams, right? Yap. Spend like 5 minutes each chat message. Uh, just like the sound of my voice, I suppose. I mean, I think every YouTuber likes the sound of their voice to an extent, at least. Because otherwise they wouldn't be doing YouTube, right? Just wait for people to file on in, I suppose. Well, I just awkwardly talk to myself for the time being. Oh, hello, Dylan. How are you doing? Today is a really nice day. Sunny. The weather is, the temperature, 83 degrees. I was out for a little bit earlier, for like literally 2 minutes, I think. Use this YouTube notification. Social media is overloading your mental RAM. Yeah, sure it is, but here I am on social media, perpetuating the problem, so whatever. Anyway, um, yeah, I was outside for like 2 minutes before taking out garbage, and felt nice outside. Not There wasn't any god awful humidity today like there was yesterday. Thank God for that, I suppose. Though the other day we did get a lot of rain here in NYC, and my basement flooded. First time in over a year that happened. As you can imagine, it was a nightmare. Spent 3 hours down there cleaning out the water. Ugh. Doing better. That's good. Were you not doing well before? You don't have to talk about it in a public stream if you don't want to. How's it going? Going well, I suppose. This Friday is just like any other Friday or any other day for me, frankly. I don't have really much going on, but whatever. It's all well and good. It's funny, I just made a video yesterday. Well, I didn't make the video yesterday, I made it 2 days ago, but I just uploaded a video yesterday about the GOP blocking the vote to at least begin the process of forcing the DOJ to release the Epstein files. And just like a few hours after I upload that video, Wall Street Journal drops this article with a transcript of this creepy letter that Trump sent Epstein on his, I believe, 50th birthday, saying creepy shit like, "We both have secrets in common. Enigmas never age." And take a wild guess what enigma is supposed to be alluding to in that context. And may every day contain a new wonderful secret. Like, unless you have no functioning brain cells, it should be incredibly obvious to you that the president has, or had rather, a long-standing relationship with the most prolific sex trafficker in at least American history. That's not to say, uh, I'm sure all across the political aisle there are people implicated in those files. I mean, Bill Clinton, I'm sure, is in there with some probably damning stuff surrounding him as well. But yeah, I was reading that last night though, and it was really just fucking. It was a weird letter. It was like Trump wrote this made up conversation between him and Epstein where they were saying these things to each other, and yeah, I mean, of course, I've seen MAGA deny it and say, "Oh, it's a fake letter," and of course, Trump himself has denied writing the letter and saying he's gonna sue the Wall Street Journal. And I think it's funny that this is coming from the Wall Street Journal of all places, a right-wing rag owned by Murdoch. Funnily enough, I mean, all those years ago when one of the writers in the Wall Street Journal wrote that article about PewDiePie, or calling out PewDiePie for you know, donating to poverty-stricken people in a foreign country and instructing them to write "Death to all Jews" on a fucking flag or whatever. And I remember when that controversy happened, and among one of those people thinking that the Wall Street Journal was this SJW organization or a news publication, when again it's actually a right wing owned by Rupert Murdoch, some guy who owns Fox News, New York Post, which infuriatingly enough, my mom loves to read New York Post, despite her being a milquetoast liberal. I think she reads it literally just because it has New York in the title, so she thinks it's like some kind of like, I don't know, reputable New York publication. I don't fucking know. I've told her over and over again that the Post is garbage, but she still reads it, so whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny that this is coming from the Wall Street Journal of all places for the reasons I just said. And we'll see if more stuff comes out against Trump in the coming days or weeks. I mean, I still kind of maintain, like, I still have in the back of my mind that probably Trump is going to wiggle his way out of this controversy, just like all the other controversies in the past surrounding him. I mean, how many times have we been here before where it seems like Trump is on the ropes and then he manages to wiggle his way out of the controversy? But at the same time, maybe this might actually stick because, like I've said before, the whole case surrounding Epstein is one of the cornerstones of MAGA. Like, one of the reasons why, at least his diehard supporters support him, is because they think he's going to tear down the Democrat elite pedophile ring, when it's not Democrats I'm sure, just when it's not just Democrats who are implicated in these files. That's one of the major reasons, at least, why his most diehard supporters and most loyal supporters and most detached from reality supporters love Trump so much. He's going to take down the pedos, take down the Democratic Party, and expose them for their horrific crimes against children, when a lot of Republicans, both politicians and figures, and those who support the Democratic Party, Republican Party, and Democratic Party, I mean, again, this implicates both sides likely, are also implicated in these files. Had a good day today, better than the previous 2 days. I had anxiety attacks on Wednesday and Thursday, which is why Wednesday and Thursday were bad for me. Well, I didn't know Wednesday and Thursday were bad for you, but I'm glad you're doing better now, seemingly. Hey, says a lot about Trump not releasing the files and defending him. Yeah, I mean, unless, like I said, unless you're like the most detached from reality Trumper, you're going to look at Trump's reaction to this whole fiasco and think, yeah, at the very least, you're going to think, yeah, something's off here. Something's fishy. Trump might, at the very least, Trump might have some connections to people who had prominent connections to Epstein. And some, hopefully, more than I would assume, are, reaching to the conclusion that perhaps Trump himself had prominent connections to Epstein, because, come on, I mean, the fucking evidence is staring you right in the fucking face. All the pictures of him and Epstein together, him riding on Epstein's jet. I mean, there's also creepy quotes from Trump like, Jeffrey Epstein is one of my best friends and he loves young, beautiful girls. Ugh. Another creepy shit that doesn't exactly have to do with Epstein, but is still a ginormous red flag, like Trump admitting that, for his teen beauty pageants, to go to the changing rooms and watch underage girls get dressed. That's our president. It's not like any of this was a fucking secret before the 2024 election, or hell, none of this was a secret. A lot of this wasn't a secret, at least, before the 2016 election. But this country So who this country wants to serve as president. The Epstein files should be a wake-up call for Trump supporters and people who voted for him. It should be, but I'll believe it when it actually happens. I mean, again, I still think in the back of my mind that, or at the very least, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump manages to wiggle his way out of this controversy like all the other controversies surrounding him in the past. And, I mean, I've already been seeing his base deny that letter was written by him and deny all the other evidence that's been staring them right in the fucking face that Trump was a prominent Epstein associate. I mean, a lot of them have deluded themselves into thinking that Trump cut Epstein, banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago like 20 years ago because Trump found out about Epstein's crime and was disgusted and cut him out of his life. And yeah, a very close friend of his that also had a lot of mutual friends who were also participating in the sex trafficking and doing horrific things to minors in general. Yeah, I highly doubt Trump is completely oblivious to all of that for a very long time. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of fucking dimwits in this country, and I mean, there is still a big divide among MAGA when it comes to Trump's handling of this whole fiasco, but I would not be surprised if by this time next month they fall in line, accept their new marching orders that, the Epstein files were never a big deal or they're a hoax. I never cared about them to begin with, even though your whole fucking ideology or a good chunk of your ideology, at least in the last at least 6 years, has been taken down the Democrat elites who partake in sex crimes and were associates of Epstein when your guy was a very prominent associate of Epstein. And I'm not trying to give leeway to the Democrats or anything. Like I said, I'm sure there are plenty of prominent Democrats. I mean, Bill Clinton, he was an Epstein associate. I shouldn't say probably. I mean, he's an Epstein associate. He should go down with Trump. Him and Trump could share the same fucking prison cell for all I care. It's not a left versus right issue. It's not a Democratic versus Republican issue. It's an issue of Epstein had ties to plenty of powerful people who participated in horrific acts against children, and we deserve to know the names of those who participated in those acts against children, regardless of their party affiliation, regardless of their status in society. They are monstrous people who deserve to face justice. Simple as that. And I'm glad that the Epstein story or case or whatever seems to be one of those very few things that transcends politics. Like, it's not just people who are very politically in tune who know about Epstein and his crimes. A lot of people who normally don't give a shit about politics are really invested into this. Like, on YouTube, for example, Penguin Zero has been making a lot of videos about this and calling out the Trump administration for one, saying that the Epstein files were a hoax, and now saying, oh, or I mean, initially saying the Epstein files weren't real, and now saying they're a hoax that were written or concocted by Obama, Clinton, Comey. He's been really going hard on that, and he usually doesn't talk about politics, and I really do appreciate that he's, bringing more attention to this situation because he's a very prominent normie YouTuber who normally doesn't talk about stuff like this. And a lot of normie people really care about this because this isn't some fringe political cause or fringe political issue. Again, this is an issue concerning a guy who had countless connections to prominent people, very powerful people on top of that, who, committed horrible crimes against children. And, that disgusts anyone, regardless of whether they care about politics or not, regardless of where they stand on the political spectrum. So I'm glad that, people aren't putting up on this, or, you know, like what, 2 weeks now this has been an ongoing, fiasco. I mean, really it's been going on for longer than that, but it's finally reached its peak around a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It's just nice to see. Speaking of Trump, I want to get out of this town since there's a lot of Trumpers here. There's a lot of Trumpers where I live, in my part of NYC, the town I live in. There was right around the corner from me who had a Trump sign in front of their house in the months leading up to the 2024 election and the 2020 election. Yeah, unfortunately, where I live in NYC, despite being one of the socially progressive places in this country and the most left-leaning or democratic-leaning, at least, areas in this country, I live in a pretty vile part of NYC with a lot of racists and Trumpers, and yeah. But I mean, I can't control where I was born and where I live. I mean, I can theoretically control where I live. I could move out, but no, I'm pretty happy with where I am. I like my home. I don't like a lot of the people who live around me, but I mean, this house. I mean, I've lived in this house my whole life, and I'm still pretty content living in this house and my area in general. I mean, despite a lot of the pretty vile people who live around here, this is a pretty quiet part of NYC. I even live in a pretty quiet cul-de-sac. NYC isn't all tall buildings, congested traffic, and you know, bright lights and all that shit. There are pretty chill, quiet areas here, and my area happens to be one of those areas. I mean, it's not quiet, quiet. I mean, you still get, the buses coming around here and all that, and sirens and shit. But, compared to how NYC, a lot of parts in NYC are, it is relatively quiet here. And that's what I like about where I live. I mean, there are leftists and progressives like me here, but I'd prefer to live in a big city in my state or in a different state since I'm a city boy. Yeah, I'm a city boy through and through. Again, born and raised in NYC. I don't really know any other life besides the life I live, and I don't know any environment besides the environment I have been born and raised in. I mean, I look at like rural areas and I'm like, how the fuck do you do it? Like, I'm so just, having a whole bunch of places around me, people around. And then, there are other places in this country where, it's just dead silence, no people around. And, even though I'm not a people person, I do like, living where I am and, having people, knowing that there are a whole bunch of people around. Because I'd imagine living in a rural area where there's no one around get pretty lonely. I mean, I'm sure there are people, maybe even people watching this stream who live in a rural area and are like, how the fuck can you live in NYC? How do you do it? I think I've been asked that before by some people online. And I'm just like, well, this is all I know. That's how I do it. I was born here. I don't know any other type of environment. How do you do it? Probably give me the same answer. Jeffrey Epstein is a weirdo. Let's put it very, very lightly. I can't understand how people like Trump, R. Kelly, and Kanye still have supporters. Yeah, I know Kanye still has a pretty dedicated following, and of course Trump does. I didn't know there were people who still like R. Kelly, though. Fuck R. Kelly, huh? If only Diddy got as harsh of a sentence as R. Kelly did. He pretty much got away with his crime scot-free. There's no shortage of Trumpers where I live either, especially since it's so red. I mean, yeah, don't you live in Florida, I think? Said before. Condolences. Or some other deep red state. Yeah. I'm counting my lucky stars that I wasn't born in a red state and don't live in a red state. I mean, I have been to Florida a few years ago. I visited my grandmother who lives in Fort Lauderdale. And I mean, speaking purely about, the about you know, not talking about the political climate of Florida at all, speaking purely about, the environment and um the uh the land itself. Florida was a pretty nice state. I was only there for like a week, so I wasn't there too long. But yeah, I would not want to live in Florida. No, thank you. I mean, on top of the horrendous politics, there's also, of course, the extreme weather events, like hurricanes and such, and the heat, humidity. Not for me. The neighbors upstairs from me in my apartment are so loud. Always sounds like they dropped a bowling ball. Yeah, I mean, I kind of sort of relate when it comes to loud neighbors. I live where I live. I mean, the houses are connected to each other. So I can sometimes what my neighbor next door is up to. Sometimes I hear her walking up and down the stairs, or oh god, did I ever share this on any of my streams? I think either last November or December, I was in my living room watching TV, and her living room was on the opposite end of the wall, and I swear I heard like moaning and groaning like someone was having sex. I don't know if she brought a guy home or if she was watching porn. I mean, my family, my uncle at least, has been in her house, and her TV is mounted on the wall that is on the opposite end of our wall. So, yeah, that was something. Uh, I live in South Texas. Oh, Texas, you live in. Yeah, I knew it was one of the uh, uh, bigger red states. Yeah, my condolences that you have to live in Texas. Well, I mean, maybe you like it, but yeah, Texas is another state I would not want to live in. No, thank you. Remember you said in one video, not every Southerner is racist. Do you still stand by that? Well, of course I still stand by that. Not every Southerner is a hardcore Trumper or racist or a bigot of any side. There are decent people who live in the South. I mean, I know some decent people who live in the South. I knew a trans woman who lived in the South, and she was very far left. And she was an anarcho-communist. Unfortunately, she passed away last year, though. But yeah, she is an example. She was an example of a decent person who lived in the South and wasn't, the typical, you know, ignorant bigot that, you know, people in blue states typically think of when they think of people in the South when they have never spoken to anyone who lives in the South. I mean, that isn't to say, the South isn't ugly and doesn't have its share of ugly people. By ugly, of course, I mean, when it comes to their beliefs. The South has no shortage of that, but I'm not going to pretend that, the South is entirely that, at least when it comes to the people. I live in Maryland, which I think is a blue state. Yes, Maryland is a blue state. It went blue in 2024. And I think it typically does go blue in elections. The town that I live in is also one of the most uneducated places in America. Well, that's doubly unfortunate. How's it like living there? I'll likely never know what it's like to live, well, one, live in Texas and live in that specific area of Texas you're referring to. I mean, I know there are blue pockets in Texas, like Austin, I believe, is a fairly left-leaning city. Which is the case for, like, many states. There are a lot of states where, outside of the big city areas, it's very red. Like New York, for example, New York State, it's not deep red, but I do believe it is fairly red. I don't know if New York would be a red state if not for NYC, but it is New York State is considerably more red than NYC is. I'm in a nicer pocket where no one seems to get heavy into politics. Good old swing state of Connecticut, I believe. If you're talking about Connecticut, I have been there a few times. I have cousins who live there. Well, a few cousins actually. Um, I don't really like them that much though. The spoiled rich kids. Their father is a millionaire who does nothing to give back to the family or anything, and he's also an asshole on top of that. And the oldest one, who's my age, I remember hearing a few years ago she got a fucking Mercedes for Christmas, and she was pissed because the Mercedes wasn't in the color she wanted. Like, yeah, spoiled rich kids through and through. It's just two daughters. Texas has Texas Paul. Love that guy. I actually don't know who that is. I don't mind living here, right? All of the right wing bullshit. Yeah, I mean, I live in NYC, but I live, like I said, in a more Trumpy friendly area of NYC. But I still like where I live because I've lived in this area my entire life. So it's really all I know. And I mean, it's not all bad. I've befriended quite a few people who live here from school and such. And they're all pretty cool people. I live right outside a very rich area, though. Like, literally, just um, you drive up the road, make a few turns, like a 2-minute drive, and you're like in the middle of an area with a whole bunch of mansions. I had a tutor who lived in that area, and I remember before a state test I had to take back in not middle school, elementary school. He was me and other kids he was tutoring at the time. He was going to give us a mock state test and preparation for the state test we're about to take, the math one more specifically. And it was going to be at his house in the basement. I remember going into his house, and that is the only time I've ever been in a house as big as his. Jesus fucking Christ. His basement was like the same size as the entire downstairs of my house. Holy shit. It's like it was like entering a whole different world for 2 hours. And I do have a friend who did live in that area. His parents live in that area. He's from a very well-off family, obviously, if they live in that area and have a house as big as the one he used to live in. But he moved out like 2 years ago. Lives on his own now. I've never actually been to his house, though. Oh, I don't even remember where that tangent came from. Oh, I think this is where I left off. And Luke Beasley. Good people everywhere. I don't know who Luke Beasley is either. I live in Alberta, Canada, the Texas of Canada. Yeah, I've heard some stories about Alberta and how that's, at least politically speaking, one of the more undesirable areas of Canada. But, I mean, I'm sure you make the best of it and don't really think about it. Like, I don't really think about, the politics of a lot of the people I live around either. Hey, I'm going to chat here till my mom is done cleaning the shower. All right, well, enjoy your stay for however long you stay, or for however much longer your mother is cleaning the shower. More news in the UK, but the government is cracking down hard on Palestine protests and making it a terrorist charge. Yeah, that's not surprising. I mean, get pretty much almost the same thing here in the States. I mean, both major political parties are in the pockets of Israel lobbies and, does the bidding of Israel. And you say anything, you criticize Israel, and you have especially if you're, participating in like a protest on a college campus, you have you run the risk of, especially if you're an immigrant, you run the risk of getting detained by ICE or getting detained by law enforcement in general. Land of the free, right? We really value that First Amendment we have. I sadly live in Florida, but I'm going to Georgia, which is not helping because that is another red state. Yeah, well, Georgia did go blue in not the last election, but the one before that in 2020. And I believe Georgia did go to Obama at least once, right? So it's not a red state, but yeah, it's still, it's still better than Florida, definitely, but yeah, I mean, still fairly red. But still, good on you for getting out of Florida, or you're about to get out of Florida at least. Because yeah, again, like I said, I could not imagine living there. The horrendous politics, and I mean, just in general, Florida is not a state I would like to live in. Just a few years ago, Fort Lauderdale got flooded, and yeah, that's where my grandmother lives. And thankfully, I mean, she didn't get it that bad. She didn't see any major damage, but yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people there can't say the same. I remember looking at that and thinking, yeah, I have no desire to ever live there. Live in Massachusetts, a blue state. Yeah, I've never been to Massachusetts, but I've heard it's a pretty nice state. Not just talking about politics. I mean, I've heard nice things about the state in general. I don't know if I'll ever go there. I don't know anyone there, so I don't really have much of a reason to go there. Who knows? No, wait, I do know someone there. It's just someone I don't, well, not someone I'm friends with, but someone who I kind of knew in high school. She was a friend of a friend of a friend, just someone I knew because I had a few mutual friends with her. I heard that she did go to Boston, like, not even a year ago, probably like, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago. She moved there for a job. Forget what the job was specifically, but I know she's there now. Boston. Did you hear what happened to Colbert? Yeah, he lost his show, right? The Late Show got canceled after what, 30 plus years on air? Obviously not with Colbert that entire time, Letterman originally. Yeah, it came right after that big merger finalized between Paramount and some other media company. And I know they also recently settled on that lawsuit Trump filed because he didn't like the 60 minutes, the interview 60 minutes conducted with Kamala. And it's speculated that part of that settlement was Colbert loses his show, or rather, his show gets canceled because he's one of the more prominent talk show hosts that is very, very anti-Trump. I don't really watch his show, so it's not going to be like some huge loss to me. I did watch his interview, Colbert's interview with Brett Lander and Zoran Mamdani last month that took place literally the night before the primary. And I can't say I was very impressed, though. I mean, I did like that he did give Zoran and Lander that platform, but most of what he wanted to talk about with Zoran was Israel. So, yeah, I mean, not particularly shedding tears over Colbert losing his show, but I just don't like the precedent this is probably going to set. Trump doesn't like your show. The network could probably capitulate to Trump and axe your show. So I don't like this on that front. Doesn't Paramount also own Comedy Central, which is where Jon Stewart's show is airing on? I'd be surprised if that ends up getting the axe as well. Trump makes a big stink about that show. It's funny though, speaking of Mamdani in Israel, it's funny that someone who is running to be the mayor of New York City, a position that has nothing to do, or at least very little to do, with foreign politics or geopolitical politics. Um, it's funny that he's getting grilled so hard about his stance on Israel when it's really just I don't like genocide. But I know why they're doing it. Ooh, scary brown man doesn't like Israel, and he's Muslim. Just dumb Islamophobic bullshit that thankfully is not working on the electorate. Meanwhile, I'm probably more poor than you. Well, yeah, I mean, my family isn't poor, not rich either, but yeah, we're not like we're relatively well off. I grew up in a very middle class family and area. Yeah, I mean the area I live in isn't like very upper class or anything like that. It's a nice area, but it's not like posh or a place where very very privileged people live in. Speaking of Southerners, there's a comedian named Trey Crowder. Oh, unfortunate last name. Who calls himself the liberal redneck. Oh yeah, I've heard of that channel. He made a pretty based video about how cops and rednecks are natural enemies. Yeah, I did hear about that. I have heard of that channel and have seen some videos from that channel. Not a regular viewer of that channel, but sometimes that guy's videos pops up in my feed, and sometimes I'll watch them. And I do also like them for the the anomaly that someone who talks exactly like how you would expect like a hardcore Trumper from the South to talk, like as a fairly left-leaning person, and it's a good refutation to the very drawn out stereotype that every redneck is the backwards racist bigot. So I appreciate the guys' videos on that front. Because, like I've said before in some other videos, and someone did bring up a video I made like 6 years ago talking about how not every person in the Southerners is a racist or a bad person in general. I am kind of tired of that whole, the whole stereotype that, everyone in the South is this dimwit who votes Republican and is a bigot, and when that is not the case at all. Again, that may be a lot of people in the South, no doubt, but, I'm not one to write off someone automatically just because they happen to be born in a certain area of the country that, may harbor a lot of people like that. Because, there are people like that in every area in this country, every state, even in solid blue states. Like I just said, like I said before in this stream, I live in NYC, but my town is a very Trump-friendly town. My fucking district voted in George Santos. So that should tell you a lot right there. Now we have Swazi, another fuckhead, but yeah, I mean, at least he's not George Santos, but that's scraping the fucking bottom of the barrel. I'm from Greenfield, Massachusetts. Nice little town overall. Oh, I see. And again, I don't really know much about Massachusetts. I vaguely know one person who lives there now, but yeah, not like there's someone I spoke to on a regular basis or anything. Alberta is okay. Probably wouldn't be as bad to you as Texas would be. Well, yeah, I mean, even like the Canadian right wingers are still pretty different from right wingers here in this country. Still, still have more left leaning principles than your typical right winger in this country would have. Surely, she's done now. LOL. So I guess that means goodbye. Do you feel Zoran is a breath of fresh air, being one of the few politicians who refuses to support Israel? Oh, yes, he is very much a breath of fresh air to me, and I am still not entirely over the high I got when he blew Cuomo the fuck out on primary night. Like, that is some great news that I desperately needed, because I was so ready for Cuomo to just run away with it that night. I really wanted Zoran to win, but in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, Cuomo was probably still going to get the nomination because, I mean, I'm not even just talking about the polls that came out, because at this point, I don't put any stock in polls. Not after, time and time again, polls, predicting the wrong outcome would happen. But just the vibe I got, I mean, I even saw a series of videos from a channel called Clickbait Wasteland, I think it's called, where some woman was doing street interviews in various parts of NYC, and she was asking the residents, who are they voting for? Are they paying attention to this mayoral primary? And most of the people she interviewed were like, yeah, I'm not really paying attention to the primary. Or they said, yeah, I'm kind of paying attention to it, and I'm going to vote Cuomo because I recognize his name. I think he has the most experience. And I'm like, yeah, these are the median voters who are going to push Cuomo to the top, but holy fucking shit, Mamdani blew Cuomo the fuck out. I mean, going into that primary, the best case scenario for Mamdani was Cuomo was going to win the first round, and then hopefully Mamdani catches up in the rounds after that. But no, he just outright won the first round alone. Again, I'm still not over that. Jesus Christ. And speaking about his refusal to support Israel, I mean, I'm glad that he hasn't backed down or capitulated to Zionists in any fashion. And it's so nice to see all the fucking stupid smears about how Mamdani is supposedly an anti-Semite have not been working. And that's really all they fucking have on the guy. Oh, he doesn't support Israel. Yeah, like, yeah, cool. He doesn't like genocide. That makes me like him even more. And why does why does his lack of support in Israel's genocide really matter all that fucking much? It's not like he's going to be the fucking mayor of Tel Aviv. He's going to be the mayor of NYC. Like, a position that has very little to do with foreign affairs. Maryland has one of my favorite seasonings, which is Old Bay, and some pretty good seafood. I don't eat seafood that much, or at least not as much as I probably should. I do like eating seafood from time to time, though. Georgia last went blue in 1992 before the 2020 election. Oh, then I must be confusing Georgia with another state then, that a state that, is fairly red but went to Obama at least once. Maybe I was thinking about Iowa. I don't know. Paramount owns Comedy Central too. Yeah, then and I wouldn't be surprised if whatever's the name of the show Jon Stewart hosts ends up getting the axe as well. If it actually comes to that. Charlie Kirk's rhetoric against Mamdani feels like something you'd hear 60 years ago. Yeah, I've seen snippets of what Charlie Kirk has been saying about Mamdani, and it's pretty disgusting. It's pretty disgusting in general to see a lot of what MAGA's response to Mamdani is. Just Islamophobia, fear mongering that he's a brown man from Uganda and he has an Indian background, and therefore, and like calling him a terrorist and all that shit. It's just disgusting. We've really regressed when it comes to like social progress, or at the very least, like anti-racist and anti-bigoted sentiment in general. Not to say this country was ever great on that front, but if someone linked in my Discord server around 10 years ago, back when the whole trans bathroom thing was a big issue. I mean, well, still is to an extent, but back when that issue first took off, at least, someone linked a clip from an interview Trump did on I think USA Today. And they asked him about that, and he was like, "Yeah, I support trans people using the bathrooms they prefer to use." That was so weird to hear, and I forgot that Trump tried to paint himself as the more moderate candidate back then, and he also did stuff like waving the pride flag upside down, but he still did that, and you would never fucking see that today. You would get a very different answer from him today, but again, it was just brought a whole bunch of whiplash hearing a prominent Republican candidate say, "Yeah, Trans people can use whatever bathroom they prefer to use. I don't care. None of my fucking business. None of the business of anyone else as well. But that was seen as a common sense position back then because this country was at least a little better when it came to social progress back then. I mean, that was back around the time when gay marriage was first legalized in all 50 states in this country. And now don't be surprised if one of these days that's ripped away, just like Roe v. Wade was ripped away a few years ago. It's just scary how much this country is regressing. Very fucking scary. The pissed off bartender from Alabama has great YouTube content. Who is this pissed off bartender from Alabama? Is that the name of a channel? I just remembered that Steve from Blue's Clues is starting a podcast. I didn't know that. Even though Pierre Polivier was a right-winger, I'd prefer him over Trump. Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, the Canadian right isn't as right as the American right is. Polivier would be seen as a more moderate Republican if he were a politician here in the States. I think, I'm pretty sure. Because, the Republican Party has moved so far right at this point. Trump has really calmed down when it comes to talking about seizing Canada. I wonder if he'll start bringing that up again as like a desperate attempt to distract from the Epstein fiasco. Do you get annoyed when basic human empathy is seen as radical or socialist? I do get very annoyed because empathy shouldn't be something that's politicized or seen as something as a specific side of the aisle engages in. Empathy should be universal, and it's frankly disgusting that, a lot of the right seems to shun empathy. I've even seen some fucking people, some Christians say that empathy is a sin. When isn't empathy like a core tenet of Christianity? Love this, hate the sin, love the sinner, love thy neighbor. And yet you're seeing these fucking demons just rail against the concept of empathy and caring about one another. I mean, that really shouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, one of the cornerstones of MAGA is hating other people, hating groups of people you don't like, persecuting groups of people you don't like. So, of course, they'll rail against empathy, but it just seems it just seems so common today to just not fucking care about other people. And in fact, it's like the cool position to not care about other people. And this doesn't just boil down to politics. I mean, this seems to be like a pretty common sentiment, especially here online. Let's not care about the feelings of the person we're talking to online because it's not like we'll face any real consequences if we say hurtful shit towards the person we're speaking to online. Not like we have to encounter them in real life. And we've seen the dire consequences of that type of attitude again and again, like with that Michaela lady that was on YouTube who took her own life a few weeks ago. Overall, it just seems like empathy is becoming more and more of a shunned and I would say foreign concept, but shunned concept. I think is more the right choice of words. Because it seems like having empathy and caring for other people is seen as soft and not cool, which I think is so fucking stupid. The internet I do love the internet to an extent. I wouldn't be fucking doing YouTube if I didn't like internet and social media, but I appreciate the internet for allowing people like me to have the platforms we have. And, there's a whole bunch of other aspects I do like about the internet, being able to connect with people who I would otherwise never be able to connect to. Like right now, I'm talking to 10 people who are in different parts of the country or in different countries. Love that. But it seems to have, social media seems to have really perpetuated this attitude that, you don't have to care about what you say because it's not like you're going to face any real consequences over what you say to other people. It's really promoted like this, very cowardly mindset, cowardly behavior where you could just say shit to people that you would never say to someone's face in real life. And not care one bit about the consequences because you likely won't face any. But Mark Carney won anyway. I didn't really care who won that much. I'm just glad Trudeau is gone. Yeah, not the biggest fan of Trudeau. Daily Show with Jon Stewart, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I didn't know the name off the top of my head because I don't watch Jon Stewart. Don't even really like Jon Stewart all that much, especially after a few months ago where he was scolding people for calling Trump a fascist. ICE is fucking Gestapo at this point. The dude tried to incite a coup when he lost an election fair and square. He did talk about at one point seizing other countries, to take for his own. Like at what point do you call him a fascist if if all of his actions and words up until this point doesn't qualify him as a fascist? So yeah, I don't care for Jon Stewart all that much. I like Andrew Beshear, Democratic governor of Kentucky. Yeah, he's all right. I mean, I'm glad that a governor of Kentucky isn't, who you would think he'd be, like a hardcore Republican, hardcore Trump Republican. I mean, the dude vetoed anti-trans legislation in Kentucky. I know that, and that made the right melt down and be like, "We're gonna vote you out." And yeah, he's still there. He's still there. Uh-huh. Like I said in my most recent video, anytime the GOP and Republican voters going forward want to talk about trans groomers and talk about how, the LGBT in general are full of groomers, or just want to paint their opposition as groomers in general, or want to introduce draconian laws and support draconian laws that curtail the rights of people they don't like in the name of protecting children, remind them that their guy is an Epstein associate and 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 that, he wrote that fucking creepy ass letter to Epstein. Don't let them live this down. I mean, I know they'll deny like they always do when it comes to negative news about Trump or any inconvenient fact about Trump that goes against their narrative, but still, don't let them live this down. Put them in the position where they have to defend the fucking uh, pedophile in chief. Of course, the cult won't care, but to normal people on the outside, yeah, I mean, going to defense for a known Epstein associate isn't exactly a great look. Do not let them live this down. Gay marriage has been legal in Canada for much longer than America. Yeah, Canada on many fronts is far more progressive and far more ahead than this country is. I also hate the fact that some of the music artists I like are Zionist or problematic, like Brian Littrell from the Backstreet Boys being a Trump supporter, and AJ possibly being a Zionist. Well, I don't listen to Backstreet Boys, but I do like my fair share of artists who are Zionists or have problematic viewpoints or engaged in problematic behavior. Um, you know, over the course of their lives. One of my favorite artists of all time. I only got hugely into his music last year. Bob Dylan. He wrote a pro-Israel song back in the early '80s. Now, who the fuck knows if that reflects his viewpoints today? Since we're going back 40 years ago, and he hasn't written a pro-Zionist song since, or at least one that's as obvious as the one I'm referring to. But yeah, that sucks. But at the end of the day, the dude's over 80 years old and grew up in, I don't know if an Orthodox Jewish community, but he is an 80-plus-year-old Jewish man. So can't say I'm terribly surprised that he at least was a Zionist at some point in his life and may still be one. Or David Bowie. It's not confirmed, but there have been stories of him possibly sleeping with an underage girl back in the 70s. When you look into it, the woman making that claim did allege that he did this in LA at a time when he wasn't in LA, and there's no pictures of him and this girl together like there are of her and Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, another rock star um, who molested her back when she was underage. But with that, I'm like, if Bowie did do that, he's been dead for almost 10 years. So it's not like I'm directly supporting him by listening to his music when he's been dead for nearly a decade. Separating the art and the artist is much easier when it comes to dead artists. But there are some artists I enjoy who have problematic viewpoints that are still alive that I enjoy to this day, and it's just a matter of, you know, do I like their music enough to the point where, I don't hand wave away their more problematic behavior or viewpoints, but, you know, can I still stomach listening to their music? Does their music glorify these viewpoints or behavior they're engaged in? Part of the reason why I dumped Marilyn Manson's music, well, really the reason why I dumped Marilyn Manson's music was when those allegations against him came out and his horrific treatment of his partners. And, you look back at a lot of the songs throughout his career and they very clearly glorify that type of behavior when, originally you could just hand wave it away as, edgy music, edgy songs with edgy lyrics, but, now put into the context of now, with the hindsight of what he did, or the knowledge rather of what he did, those songs are painted in a very different light, and I wasn't comfortable listening to his music anymore. I guess it just depends on how vile an artist's actions or viewpoints are. That drives me to make the determination of whether I wish to continue to listen to said artist or not. Speaking of same-sex marriage, I know Thailand legalized it a while ago. I don't know much about Thailand. I don't know how socially progressive Thailand is in general, but at least on that front, they seem okay, I suppose. I've noticed that the whole Canada Trump thing only happened January through March. Yeah, I don't know if someone around him put a muzzle on him when it came to that issue or told him to shut the fuck up regarding that issue. He really died down with that talk after Carney won. I noticed. Maybe he realized he tanked the Conservative Party's chances because going into that election for a very long time, it seemed like an easy slam dunk for the Conservative Party in Canada. And then Trump got voted back in, and then he started talking about seizing Canada, potentially invading Canada. And that's when support for the Liberal Party rose and rose and rose. Because voters in Canada knew that the Conservative Party would capitulate more to Trump than the Liberal Party would. Not saying the Conservative Party would have outright let Trump invade Canada or seize it, but they would definitely not be. They would definitely be more lenient to Trump than the Liberal Party would be. The right is getting mad over the new Superman movie. I've heard about that. I haven't seen the new Superman movie. Have no interest in watching the new Superman movie because never cared about superhero stuff all that much. But I heard the Superman movie has anti-Zionist themes. Based if true. I don't know how true that is. Maybe it is true. But I heard in general that the movie is really good, and the right is getting mad that it's woke or whatever because I think the movie like promotes empathy and shit like that, stuff that the right really hates. Um but it seems like, people who aren't in that camp seem to really like that movie, and I'm kind of glad that the right is melting down over a very well-liked movie because it just polarizes them in the eye of, the broader public even more. Haven't seen the new Superman movie yet, but I've heard it's good. Yeah, again, I haven't seen it, and I don't plan on seeing it. I don't know. Maybe I'll see it someday. I have some friends who were talking about that movie and saying it was good. Because quite a few of my friends really like the superhero stuff. Oh my god, when I was in high school and the Avengers movies were still being made, when the last one came out, Endgame was the last one, right? Well, it's literally called Endgame, so yeah, it was the last one. When that movie came out, I was a senior in high school. It was right before I graduated, like I don't know, a month or two before I graduated. That movie came out. That is all the kids in my school wanted to talk about for like 2 weeks straight. Endgame, Endgame, Endgame. Holy shit! Iron Man dies or whatever. Well, sorry for spoiling the movie, I guess. But yeah, I think everyone knows that happens at this point. Holy shit, Iron Man dies. Holy shit, Spider Man, whoever, whatever other fucking superheroes in that movie. Holy shit, Thanos. And yeah, it was. I'm not the type to stomp on other people's fun when it comes to them talking about their interests. And, I may not share the same interest. I'm not one to say, stop talking about things you don't like because it doesn't particularly interest me. But at the same time, oh my God, it just felt so awkward that seemingly my entire friend group wanted to talk about this movie, and it was all they could really fucking talk about for a long time, at least 2 weeks, when I did not give a shit at all about Avengers or any superhero properties for that matter. And I just had to kind of sit awkwardly while they were all talking about it, not having a thing to say because I know absolutely nothing about that stuff. Same thing with sports. I know it's like very. I know there's like a whole thing on social media railing against people who want to make hating sports their whole personality and shun people who want to talk about sports and brag about not caring about sports. I get it. That can get annoying. I personally don't care about sports, but I'm not going to like make it a point of always talking about me not caring about sports because at the end of the day it's just a difference in interests. But I would be lying if I said that, my friends always talking about sports when I don't have an interest in sports doesn't get at least a little annoying. Because yeah, I don't care about sports, but a lot of my friends really love sports. And just like when it comes to the superhero shit, I don't know much about sports, so I have nothing to contribute to the conversation when they do talk about sports. So it always just leads to me awkwardly sitting there while all my friends talk about, the latest sports game, whatever it may be. And I have nothing to add because again, I have not seen whatever game they're referring to because I don't watch sports and I don't care for sports. So yeah, I mean, the people who do want to make it a point of always saying they don't care about sports, yeah, sure, that gets annoying. But at the same time, when you're someone who doesn't care about sports and seemingly your entire friend group really loves talking about sports, and there have been so many instances where your friends around you are talking about sports and you have nothing to add to the conversation, and it's just really fucking awkward that you're just sitting there in silence with nothing to add to the conversation because you don't know anything about what they're talking about. Yeah, that is also kind of annoying, for me at least. Where did I leave off? I always forget to just go on these several minute long tangents are vaguely that have that have that are vaguely relevant to whatever comment I responded to, and then I end up forgetting which comment it was I left off on. I believe here after the retracted message. Yeah, the pissed off bartender is the name of the channel. He is very liberal, some fun content. It's usually short and to the point. Maybe I'll check him out. I don't know. How's it going back there? It's going all right, I suppose. Um, like I said the other day, my basement flooded, so that was not fun at all. I had to spend 3 hours cleaning up my basement. But it was the first time in over a year that happened. And the reason it did happen is because the pump we have that's connected in the back where the water usually builds up wasn't working. And we eventually did get it to work, but it was already too late because, again, the basement flooded. Pain. I feel like half the people calling all gays pedos are projecting. It almost always is projection. I mean, there's no shortage of instances where you have these people who call trans people and LGBT people in general groomers, and then that person ends up like going to prison because they got caught with a CP collection, or they got caught grooming minors or doing very inappropriate things with minors. It's almost always projection. As the saying goes, every conservative accusation is a confession. Even if you hated gays, there's a difference between two men doing it and a man and a child doing it. Yeah, exactly. But this is how the right advances their goals. They other the group of people they don't like, and by other I mean they demonize that group. They make it seem like that group as a whole engages in horrendous activities that the general public does not approve of. And that's how they were able to get a stranglehold when it comes to the culture war shit and the anti-LGBT sentiment in general. They've been able to poison the well and get more normie people to think that being LGBT is degenerate behavior, and that if you are gay or trans or etc., that inherently something is wrong with you, and you're more permissible of horrendous activities like engaging in horrific acts with minors. That's how they advance their goals, by painting their opposition or painting the groups of people they wish to persecute and that they hate as people who engage in disgusting actions because they know their hatred alone won't be enough to advance their goals of, you know, making most of society shun these people because they know if they were just completely honest and say, you know, we don't like these people because, oh, they have sex with other consenting adults of the same gender, or oh, they wish to change their gender and go by different pronouns and nothing more. A lot of the public will be like, okay, and like, why is that any of our fucking business? What harm are they bringing to society by, you know, engaging in any of that? So they have to, like, you know, invent these, you know, boogeymen within these groups and try to paint these groups as groomers and other horrific things of the sort to try to get the broader public to be on board with their cause. It's horrible and stupid, but unfortunately, it's effective. Besides the Epstein shit, didn't Trump say some very inappropriate things about his own daughter? Yes, he did. When she was like, what, 12? He said, oh, if she wasn't my daughter, I'd totally find her hot and would date her, or some disgusting shit like that. And when she was that young, he would always go on about how attractive his daughter Ivanka was. He has a long history of saying very creepy things about his daughter Ivanka. And there's like a non 0% chance that he has done very inappropriate things with his daughter. Disgusting, man. I just can't believe that this is who a lot of the country wants to be our president. Lost Prophet singer Ian Watkins has got to be the biggest monster in the music industry. I'm genuinely glad I'd never heard of Lost Prophets until I watched Critical talking about it. I first heard of Lost Prophets when that first broke, when Ian Watkins first, uh, not when it first broke, but when Ian Watkins was finally given a prison sentence. That's when I heard of Lost Prophets. I do admit I do like that one rooftop song, "Standing on the Rooftops," blah 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 blah. Um, I don't listen to it often, but I did hear that song shortly after first hearing about Ian Watkins, and I was like, okay, yeah, I think this is a decent song. I know nothing about their discography outside of that song, as I believe that was their biggest hit. But yeah, all in all, yeah, Ian Watkins is a disgusting fuck. Like what, like 2 or 3 years ago, wasn't he stabbed in prison? I remember hearing about that, and I was like, I wish him the absolute worst, but yeah, he's just fine. He recovered just fine from that. You might know about a franchise called Bang Dream. I don't actually. But to put it shortly, Amain Shindo, a vocalist from a band for the franchise called Morphonica, got bullied all because of her singing voice. Yeah, that sounds messed up. Reminds me a little bit of reminds me a little bit about little bit um about Rebecca Black. Remember her? The Friday girl. She got bullied relentlessly for that song. And because she didn't have the most, I guess, pleasant singing voice back then. I heard supposedly she makes good music now, but I don't know anything about what she does now or what she's up to. But I remember when that song was I remember the big hate train surrounding that song, and wasn't she only like 13 when that song came out? In retrospect, it's really fucked up that the internet just collectively, you know, harassed and um, shamed a young girl for ultimately making just, you know, a harmless, kind of cringe song. I mean, I'm not going to say the song was good, but I'm also not gonna say she deserved the treatment she received back then either. All in all, it was just a young girl making a dumb song. Why don't you go after the fucking guy who was behind that song and all the other songs from little kids that were, perceived to be cringy? That guy, I forget his name, but he's like the producer of Friday, and he produced a lot of other songs that, kids sang that the internet collectively shat on. Why don't you go after him for essentially humiliating these kids and having, these embarrassing songs be forever, you know, plastered online, that is going to follow them for the rest of their lives. And she was 15 to 16 at the time. This happened in 2020, just shows how cruel people can be. But yeah, then just like Rebecca Black, then again, she was very young when whole internet was pretty much harassing her for singing a cringy song. Though I'd like to pursue romance. I mean, go for it. If there's anyone you're interested in, shoot your shot, I guess. Me, I'm fine with not being in a relationship. In fact, I think I prefer being alone. I mean, I'm not saying there's no one I'm interested in, but I don't know. The concept of being in a relationship just doesn't really interest me. That's not to say, I don't find, um, I've never found anyone to be attractive. That's certainly not the case. I do find quite a few people attractive, but I mean, like being in a relationship, a serious relationship. I don't know, doesn't really appeal to me. I just kind of like being alone. I do get people from time to time saying, "Why don't you want to be in a relationship? Why don't you get a girlfriend?" And I'm like, because I don't really feel like getting one. I'm kind of sick of the concept of being single being something that should be shunned and seen as weird. Like, not everyone needs to have their Prince Charming or beautiful princess in their life. Not everyone needs to live life like that. You can live a perfectly happy life just being alone if that's what you genuinely prefer. And that's, in my case, that is what I genuinely prefer. And I don't really see why I have to rationalize it to other people, or why other people see that as so weird. I mean, it's not like this is something I get, said to me often or anything, but in the event that I do, especially from my dad, he's like, why don't you have a girlfriend already? Don't you want to fuck someone? And that's really what he views relationships as, you know, getting a girlfriend and having someone to fuck. And that's kind of why a lot of his relationships ended up crashing and burning in the end. And I mean, at least when it comes to the relationship aspect, I'm like, I don't really care about having a relationship. Sex, on the other hand, I'm not opposed to having sex, and yeah, that's all. That's all I'll share online. I used to be not so political, but after learning about Project 2025 and watching your content, I thought it was not bad to talk about politics and real world issues a bit. Well, that genuinely means a lot to me. I'm glad my content inspired you to care more about politics and the world around you, because Politics obviously is draining and a very depressing subject, but at the end of the day, it is still a very important subject that you shouldn't just bury your head in the sand from. I'm not saying you have to be like politically in tune 24/7, just, have a basic idea of what is going on in the world around you, as it is important. And politics doesn't just affect people who care about politics, it affects everyone in general, unfortunately. My grandmother Linda and my aunt Marcia are pretty based since they said they support Black Lives Matter, are feminists and have compassion and empathy, and want Palestinian people to be freed. Well, great. I mean, well, my grandmother who passed away a few years ago, she wasn't like very well in tune when it came to like politics and all that, but she was sympathetic to the Black Lives Matter cause. The riots and protests were at their peak around the time she went to the hospital and passed away. But they kickstarted a little bit before that. And she understood why people were protesting and rioting. She saw the video of George Floyd being pinned down via a knee on his neck, and she was disgusted by that. Even my grandmother on my father's side, I'm not gonna say she's like, super based or anything. She's more like just a milk toast liberal, but I'll still take that over, like a far right, detached from reality Trumper grandma. She's more like, a resist lib, but again, I'll take that over the much uglier alternatives. My mom is pretty feminist too. Yeah, my mom, she's just a milk toast lib. She doesn't really talk about feminism or any of that all that much. I don't think she really cares about that subject. Really, the basis of her politics is just, you know, typical resist lib shit, like the be all end all of politics is, oh, Trump bad, you know? But yeah, Trump is indeed bad, but, you know, it's not he's not the only thing that's wrong with this world. My mom is also a feminist, pro Palestine, and pro choice. My mom is sympathetic to Palestinians, though. She understands, well, I'm not going to say she's like hardcore pro Palestine, but she does understand that what Israel is doing in Palestine is horrific. And she is pro choice. And I see here, my mom has also stated that she likes Bernie Sanders standards and thinks that he is based. Um, yeah, my mom, back during the 2020 election, she liked Bernie. She wasn't like a hardcore supporter. She really just, it was me that, got her to, you know, kind of hear Bernie out and listen to his positions, because otherwise she probably would have just, you know, um, would have just backed Biden all the way through the 2020 primary. I even got her to rank Zoran and not rank Cuomo in this past primary, which I am very happy about. She was going to rank Cuomo initially, and then I told her that Cuomo would essentially be more of Eric Adams, who she hates and she understands is, Trump's puppet essentially. And you know, I told her more about Zoran's policies and why they would be good for NYC and all of that, and I was able to turn her on to Zoran's platform. So she's not, like, a staunch center right lib. She can be sympathetic to more left wing viewpoints if presented to her in a way she understands. And the propaganda about Zoran being like this far left communist did did kind of work on her for a bit, because she was like, ooh, I hear this guy's a communist, and I don't really like that. And again, she reads a lot of New York Post, and the New York Post has been going hard on anti-Zoran propaganda. So she reads stuff like that, and she's raised in a generation where communist is pretty much synonymous with like dictator and shit like that. And again, I told her it's just stupid fear mongering, and I told her about Zoran's platform, and she was like, that actually sounds pretty sensible. And again, I was able to convince her to not rank Cuomo, and she ranked Zoran first on her ballot last month. Or 2 months ago, actually. We both voted via mail, and we got our ballots in May. I love voting by mail, by the way. So much more convenient. Indonesia is extremely conservative, possibly worse than the US. I've also read that they're racist towards Chinese Indonesians. Yeah, I've heard quite a few horror stories about Indonesia. I feel sorry for any left-wing person who lives there. Yeah, I've unfortunately, Indonesia is a very far-right country. Shindo got bullied so bad, her agency threatened to get the police involved. What was she like, receiving death threats or getting doxxed or whatever? Yeah, unfortunately, the internet is a very ugly place. And hang on for a second. There we go. I'm more comfortable now. In Utero, favorite Nirvana album. But yeah, the internet is a very ugly place, and if you make content in general, unfortunately, it's an inevitability you're going to get ugly comments from people saying the nastiest shit towards you. I'm no exception. I mean, look at some of my more, I guess, contentious videos and look at the comments under them. I think easily my worst comment section is my infinite list rant comment section. I mean, at the end of the day, they were all like 9-year-olds angry that I talked about a YouTuber, talked bad about their favorite YouTuber. So, it's nothing that I took very seriously. But even still, I got like at one point like 100 comments a day under that video, and it's all the same fucking bullshit from all the same fucking dumbass 9-year-olds telling me that I need to die or saying horrendous shit that no one at any age, but especially their age, should be saying to another person. And I'm like, this shit is just getting so tiring at this point. So that's why I decided to change the title and thumbnail to that video. But there are other people online who would not be able to handle that type of attention, getting so many comments over and over again saying the most disgusting shit towards them. And again, I mean, it's just really depressing that social media just kind of allows for that behavior to fester, because again, you're likely not going to receive any real consequences for what you say to other people on social media. Social media kind of gives you the implicit permission to be an asshole towards other people, because it's not like you're talking to someone face to face or physically, they're on a physical level. So therefore, you're more detached from the people you talk to online. You don't exactly really need to think about what you say towards them. So, you feel more comfortable saying hurtful, disgusting shit towards them. Again, I love social media, obviously, since I have a YouTube channel and I'm streaming live to said channel right now. And I love that social media, makes a platform like this possible for me to have. But I also have to acknowledge the bad and how it, inherently fosters a very toxic environment that gives people implicit permission to act toxic towards others. And I hate that the default response to calling out said toxicity is, this is the internet, everyone is an asshole, just suck it up and handle it, when not everyone is equipped to handle that, and I don't see why that's such a bad thing. Like, what is so wrong about me being more considerate towards how other people feel and not being, an asshole 24/7? Oh, I remember the Friday backlash. People would shit on teen pop music just because it's cringe and it's not real music. Well, music is incredibly subjective. Anything is real music, if you believe it is. I'm not one to declare something is not real music just because I don't like it. I think that's kind of a stupid thing to say, and again, music is incredibly subjective. My last relationship didn't end the best, to be fair. Not saying I'm never open to a relationship, but I have less trust in one after that. Yeah, I do understand why one having a relationship that might end ugly might not want to, just jump right into another relationship, or be hesitant to enter another relationship out of fear that the next relationship may end, the way the previous one did. I think that's understandable. You're just, entering a serious relationship is a commitment, and you have to be extra sure that you're compatible with with the other person if you do wish to pursue a serious relationship. And I don't really, I don't really think I'm equipped to, I don't know if handle is the right word, but I just don't know if I'm built to have a serious relationship, because I'm just someone who prefers to be alone. It's not that I never enjoy the company of other people, and who knows, maybe my perspective will change in the future. Maybe I will really want someone, someone to be with, but as of right now, I'm content with not being in a committed relationship. And again, I don't really see why I have to rationalize that with other people and explain why I just prefer to be alone, because that's just the way I am. It's like, I'm not grilling you about why you're in a relationship, so why do you have to grill me about not being in one? Again, it's really just my dad who gives me shit for that. He's like, like I said before, he's not like, you don't want a girlfriend, you don't want to fuck, you don't want to fuck a girl or shit like that. You don't want to find someone to fuck, I think he says to me. The relationship part, yeah, I'm not very interested in having a relationship. A YouTuber I watch called Takashi from Japan did a video interviewing Japanese people and what they think of the LGBT community. Most of them said that they're fine with them. I hear a lot about how Japan is supposedly backwards when it comes to LGBT people, but a lot of what I hear is very conflicting. On one hand, I hear that Japan is very socially conservative and not very supportive of LGBT people. On the other hand, I also hear that Japan is getting better on this front. I don't know which is more true than the other. Admittedly, I don't really know that much about Japanese politics and attitudes and such, so it's nothing I can really comment on in depth. Yep, Shindu was receiving death threats because of fans of Bang Dream expected her voice to be more mature and like a grown woman when, like, bro, she was 16 years old. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know what else they expect a 16-year-old to sound like. And I think it's kind of weird to expect a 16-year-old to sound or appear more mature. I also know that Japan ruled their ban on same-sex marriage as unconstitutional. I don't know if they'll legalize it, but there's hope. Well, at least there's that, I suppose. Maybe they're getting there. We got Professor Mikey with the yapping lecture. Yeah, well, it's really what I do in every stream. Just yap, 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 yap away. And spend an ungodly amount of time on most of the messages in the chat that I receive. But hey, I mean, that's what the people seem to enjoy. Otherwise, no one would be tuning into these streams, I suppose. I never really think about what topics I'll talk about in each stream because I just like fucking around with the chat and being beholden to whatever the chat wishes to bring up. It's kind of fun that way, you know? It's more, I guess, impromptu, you know? It's more fun just talking away and seeing seeing what um, topics that talking will lead to, as opposed to going in knowing what you're going to talk about. Can you stand apolitical people or they annoy you? That kind of depends on how vehemently opposed to discussing politics the person is. Like, I do know some apolitical people, and by apolitical, they don't really care about politics that much, but they still do care on a certain level about politics. They just aren't, always in tune like I am, or most of the other people I talk to are. And I can stomach those kinds of people. I understand that politics is a very depressing, divisive subject that, isn't healthy to invest all isn't healthy to invest all your time to or anything. I understand that some people wouldn't want to pay attention to politics all the time, and I can't fault them for that. But it's the people who are so against talking about politics. They don't want to hear about politics. They don't want to discuss politics. They shun the idea of talking about politics. Those kinds of people, I don't know if I'll say I can't stand them, but like at this point, in the midst of this administration, if you're really that opposed to talking about politics on any level, I just can't take you seriously. Like, straight up. Like the fucking big beautiful bill that just passed that's going to kick millions of people off Medicaid. Permanent tax cuts for the rich. It's going to be ruinous to our economy, especially if you're not a rich fuck yourself. It's going to affect everyone in this country who isn't a multi-billionaire in a negative fashion. And you don't want to talk about that? You shun the idea of talking about something like that? Yeah, I mean, again, I just find that so fucking stupid and ridiculous. I remember when I first started doing political videos on my channel, I got people who were like, why are you talking about politics? Talk about bad fan bases or stuff going on in the gaming industry or other shit that doesn't matter all that much. Why are you talking about this? Stick to what you usually talk about. And I'm like, I'm not pointing a gun to your head, forcing you to watch these political videos, and I'm still making the videos that I made when I was supposedly good in your eyes. It's just that I also have an interest in talking about politics. This channel has always been a reflection of what I am interested in discussing, and I'm sorry I'm not 15 years old anymore. Talking about bad fan bases and Miiverse, interests change naturally as you get older, and you're not always interested in talking about the same shit that you were interested in talking about when you were literally a teenager. Wasn't it recently found out that a lot of workers on certain farms, I assume, were illegal immigrants? It's annoying how ignorant people are. If they really had it their way and kicked all of the illegal immigrants out of the country, they're gonna see their fucking food prices skyrocket like they've never seen before. Because I really think that a lot of these farms fucking hire, legal citizens and pay them fair wages. No, they don't, and that is how your food prices remain relatively cheap because these farms don't have to pay fair wages for the workers they hire. Not to say that it's the justification for that practice, but I'm just saying illegal immigration benefits your life in many ways that you don't think about. It's not just gang members coming into this country committing crime and all that shit. It's people who legitimately want to work, and people who, corporations and farms, etc., unfortunately exploit for cheap labor, and that is how a lot of your goods and your food is cheap via uh, cheap labor, via hiring people. They don't have to pay fair wages. And like I said, it's annoying how ignorant people are. They don't understand that immigration is a net positive for this country. Not saying that again. I'm not saying that justifies the exploitation, but I'm just saying immigration does benefit their lives in many ways that they don't factor in. A friend was doing the screening of The Simpsons, and they forgot they did an Elon episode. Wow, that episode aged like milk. Yeah, I remember hearing that Elon did a Simpsons episode. I forgot about that. Well, I don't watch The Simpsons, so I that's kind of why I didn't really remember that all too well. Didn't he also do a Big Bang Theory episode? I mean, that was his prime audience at the time. People who would watch a show like Big Bang Theory, right? Before he, got super into politics, and that was back when he was seen as, the progressive billionaire, uh, real life Tony Stark, and all that stupid shit. Whoa, I've been streaming for almost an hour and 50 minutes. Wow. I was not looking at the timer there. I didn't know I've been streaming for this long. Well, I'll be streaming for about 15 more minutes, I suppose. It's always the 2 hour and 5 minute mark I end at. It's been a long time. Wow. Yeah, this stream really is really living up to its name, yapping. Been yapping for nearly 2 hours straight. Well, these streams admittedly are a pretty good release for me because there's really no other instance in my life where I'm talking for 2 hours continuously. It's nice to just let all this yapping out at least once a month because I don't do a whole lot of talking in my day-to-day life. I'm a pretty quiet person. My regular videos, at least when it comes to the actual recording process, they usually don't take any longer than 20 minutes to make. Barring longer videos like the OBA video I uploaded last month that took like an hour to record. Ooh, not used to that. Unrelated, but did you hear? Did I hear what? Well, something in the news, or Japan shut down its PlayStation studio. No, I actually didn't. Which studio in specifically? No, PlayStation has a bunch of different studios under its umbrella. Yeah, gaming news is something that I've kind of tuned out from recently with everything that's been going on in the political sphere, especially with the whole Epstein stuff. I haven't really been paying attention to gaming news a whole lot. Well, I still do play games a lot. I'm currently in the middle of another playthrough of Ghost of Tsushima, a great game, by the way. Uh, last time I played it was sometime last year, I think around April or May. I still have no interest in getting the Switch 2. I know no one brought that up, but since, we're on the topic of gaming, still, I don't know when I'll get a Switch 2, if I ever do get one. It really just depends on what games come out for it. And right now, Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong, whatever the name of the game is, that's going to come out, or has already come out, I don't even know exactly, isn't enough to make me want to run out and buy a Switch 2. I've heard kind of mixed things about Mario Kart World as well. Like, I've seen some people just say, it's alright. Not my favorite Mario Kart game by any means. Not a spectacular one or anything. And that just makes me even more assured that I'm never gonna pay for that game full price. If I do ever buy the game, I'm buying it secondhand. Fuck paying full price. Same thing with any $80 plus game that's going to come out in the future because Nintendo finally blew that door wide open. I'm sure other studios and publishers are going to follow suit, pricing their games exorbitantly high. It just sucks. I didn't think Nintendo would be the one to really kickstart that. I figured it would have been Rockstar with GTA 6. But no, Nintendo decided to be the trendsetter in that regard with Mario Kart World. Of all games, a fucking Mario Kart game, $80, Jesus Christ, with less content than its predecessor. I'm away at a late Pride parade tomorrow. Pride in another city I'm going to has it in July, then June for some reason. Well, have fun. I didn't know Pride Parade still occurred in July, at least in wherever you are. But no, have a good time. Can't say I've ever been to a Pride Parade myself. Well, one, I'm not. I'm a cis straight dude, so I don't know if I would necessarily be. Well, I can't. I wouldn't say I would be welcome there. I'm sure that's not the case at all. But I personally don't think that's. Well, I mean, I've never been offered to go to a Pride parade, so maybe I would go if I were offered to go with someone, just to show solidarity. But at the same time, a parade. I'm not even talking about just Pride parades. Parades in general. Yeah, not really my scene. All those people around. Not a big fan of large crowds and being around large swaths of people. I guess, it's kind of ironic coming from someone who lives in New York City, but again, I live in a pretty quiet area of New York City, or at least relatively quiet compared to most of New York City. So, yeah, I'm more used to quiet and reserved environments. Nintendo has been screwing its customers for a while, unfortunately. And they're going to continue to screw over their customers because people will just continue to bend over backwards for Nintendo and allow Nintendo to keep essentially fucking them in the ass. I mean, look at all those people who swore up and down they were not going to buy the Switch 2 because they're so against Nintendo's practices, so against games like Mario Kart World being priced for $80 or more. Only to fucking roll over and buy the Switch 2 anyway. Like, what message does that send to Nintendo besides, all opposition to our, bullshit practices and anti-consumer practices is all just performative. All these people are just gonna buy our shit regardless. So they can just continue to keep being an awful company for probably forever, and people will not stop buying their shit. Cis allies are welcome at Pride, by the way. Yeah, I know cis allies are welcomed at Pride. It's just that I've never been offered to go to a Pride parade, like I said, and again, I don't know how comfortable I would be there. Not because I'm cis and straight, but also because, again, not the type of environment I like to be in. By that, I just mean, around large swaths of people. Again, not really my thing. I had to go to Manhattan back in November. Personal matters. But I remember going there, and this was just right before Thanksgiving, too. So there were a whole bunch of fucking tourists buzzing around. And yeah, I can't say I was too comfortable with that either. Walking around all those people, Manhattan in general is just very congested and full of people walking around. Yeah, I much prefer the part of NYC where I am. Thank you very much. It also didn't help matters that I was right by the Macy's where they do the Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving, and it was actually kind of cool seeing them prepping up the inflatable, the inflatables. I got to see that. when I was walking by there. It's been years since I actually watched the Macy's Day Parade there on Thanksgiving. It's really all just a big fucking glorified advertisement anyway, you know, these inflatable like uh advertisements and shit. Yeah, not really my thing. Or inflatable characters promoting something. Yeah. And I also just don't wake up that early. Thing airs at like what, 8 or 9 a.m. and I wake up at noon. Peace out, Mikey. Peace out, brother. Me none. I'm only gonna be streaming for 5 more minutes, I assume. So it's not like you're missing out on anything. Nothing substantial, at least. There is a reason vote with your wallet is a thing. Wish people actually followed it. I do wish people actually followed that as well. A lot of people want to talk a big game about not supporting anti-consumer practices, but then when it comes to, finally being able to vote with their wallet, they choose to fucking vote with their wallet by fucking buying whatever they swore to not buy initially. They did vote with their wallet, but they just chose to vote yes to the anti-consumer practices in the end, and it's just frustrating. Like Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers, I know he made a series of videos leading up to the Switch's launch, calling out Nintendo for their anti-consumer practices. I think even saying in his videos that he wasn't going to buy uh, the Switch 2, only to buy it on launch day. I know that was a big controversy among his fan base, and I don't know if that controversy has stopped. I highly doubt it. Probably moved on by now, but just goes to show how so many people have no fucking principles. They swear up and down that they're not going to buy the shiny new product, but when that shiny new product finally comes out and is dangled in front of their face, they're like, "Ooh, shiny new product! I'll buy it, regardless of what I already said previously about not supporting the company behind said new shiny product and saying that I'm not going to buy the new shiny product in the name of not supporting said company's scummy practices." Unprincipled pieces of shit, all of those people. I don't even care for Mudahar all that much. I used to kind of like his content, but no, not so much anymore. I don't know why my phone is so slow right now. Weird. What's sad is the Target boycott against Pride merch actually worked. Yeah, Target is pretty much capitulated. Well, I mean, Target capitulated to those who are boycotting the Pride merch. Now they don't. They're not as vocally supportive of LGBT people, and they rolled the eye policies in the wake of the 2024 election. I don't go to Target. It's not even really. It's not entirely out of some principled stance to not support Target. It's just that there's just other stores I'd rather be in that also sells more products that I'm interested in buying, or rather, um, I'd over Target. I'd much rather go to a BJ's, a local franchise here in NYC or New York, or I think really the Northeast. BJ's is prevalent in, and they sell. Um, it's a warehouse franchise that sells products in bigger quantities, and I prefer going there as opposed to Target. I've heard Walmart is inescapable in a lot of America. Well, it's pretty escapable here in NYC because there's no Walmarts here. Thank God. There is a Walmart that is out in Long Island that I've been to like twice in my life. I've told people before online that I've only been to Walmart like maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. They're like, how the fuck is that possible? And I'm like, because Walmart isn't in NYC. One of the that should be a reason to love this city, right? No Walmart. Fuck Walmart. And you know what? That's a pretty good note to end this stream on. Fuck Walmart. And 2 hours and 5 minutes. So yeah, I'm ready to head out. I've been yapping for over 2 hours, and yeah, I'm starting to really feel it in my throat, getting kind of scratchy and hurting a little. Anyway, thank you all for participating in the chat in this stream. I had a lot of fun this stream, like I do with most streams that are active, that have active chats. I mean, and yeah, I'll be streaming sometime in August. I don't know what date specifically in August, but I can assure you that it'll be a random Friday in August. That much I do know. Anyway, again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all to those who are still here now and being able to somehow tolerate listening to me for 2 hours. Jesus Christ. I really appreciate it. And thank you to those who were here earlier that participated in the chat. I always appreciate everyone who participates in these streams because it is a blast interacting with you in the chat. Anyway, bye.